Good evening, beloved. Welcome to the Book of Sean. Happy Wednesday. I'm so glad you decided to join me tonight. I am absolutely encouraged by the prospects of the conversation we're going to have tonight. Tonight's chapter of the Book of Sean is all about legacy. It's all about how it is we're going to build a sustainable future for ourselves, and not just for ourselves, but for our children and our children's children and our children's 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 great-grandchildren. It's all about legacy. If you don't think about legacy, then I think there's something deficient about your thinking. And tonight, while the rest of the world is spinning and going crazy, we're going to settle down, me and you, and have a real conversation about what we can do to bring stability and balance to our lives. William Faulkner said that the center must hold. And tonight, we're going to come back to the middle and do some important thinking about what's going on. I have two tremendous guests who are going to join me tonight to talk us through how we psychologically and emotionally and spiritually think about legacy and how we financially do it. Because I'm making a contention tonight that you should not do one without the other. It shouldn't be all money and it shouldn't be all attitude. It needs to be both. A real legacy requires that we have a commitment to both. And my guests tonight are going to help me do it. They're here, and I'm excited to have them. Now, before I get to them, let's do some conversation. Let's you and I have some conversation about what's going on around us. And normally I deal with what's going on in the news or what's happening, in a particular article or something I may have seen, on a particular show. But tonight, I have a different sort of feel about it. I want to talk about this overall attitude that's going on in the country about rushing back to what we were doing before the pandemic and the quarantine happened. I want to talk just a little bit about people who are excited to get back to normal, because I think that's a problem. I think rushing back to normal may not be what we should be putting our energy into. Because here's the question: what if normal was the problem? What if what we were doing and how we were doing it and why we were doing it and the results we were getting from doing it is the reason why life, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, has made us stop, sit down, and stay our butts at home? Getting back to normal should not be what we aspire to. Getting our lives back to the rat race and the craziness, the ridiculous consumption, the obtuse notions of ego, the concupiscence, the craziness, all of that should not be what we should be rushing back to. Don't be so committed to normal that you miss the possibility that this time was sent to us to push us to do something extraordinary. So I'm not rushing back to normal. No, I'm not. And I would advise you not to do it too. I know you want to get out the house. I understand that. Kids driving you crazy, your spouse, your roommates, you're getting on your nerves. I got that. Before we rush out, before we move on, let's not do what a lot of people do. The other night, I was talking to a friend of mine on the show, talking about moving, and she talked about moving from Oklahoma to Los Angeles. I mentioned something to her that I'm going to mention to you as I wrap this up. And that is, too often people leave before they learn. And I think we should be very careful that we don't rush to leave this stage before we learn what we were supposed to learn in this moment. So forget normal. Let's move on to something critical, something significant, and something extraordinary. I'm done with that. Did you hear that Oprah Winfrey, Facebook and Instagram are gathering together to create a national commencement exercise for the 2020 graduates that don't get to have their commencements. And I think it's a good thing. I really do think it's a good thing. Shout out to Oprah, shout out to Facebook, although you know how I feel about Facebook. And shout out to Instagram for pulling this off. Now that was the kind, nice thing that I have to say about this. Here's the not so kind, nice thing I have to say about it. Here's the part that a lot of you are not going to agree with. I'm going to hear about this for the next week, I'm sure. And that is, I thought about this whole 2020 graduates wanting their commencement, needing to have it, companies going through extraordinary means to facilitate that desire. It's a good thing, but it kind of feeds into the crazy, because get over it. You have your commencement. It's not the end of the world. How I know? Because the world almost ended. We almost literally had the world end with millions of people dying. Yeah, commencements are important. I get that. I had a commencement, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have yours. You should have yours. But if you don't get it, guess what you got? To live. You got to eat. You got to have a roof over your head. You got to have people in your life that love you. Oh, wait, you got to be healthy. You remained healthy. Let's not lose sight of what's really important. The things that if we didn't have those things, we would lose something indispensable about our lives. Sure, I want you to have a commencement, but if you don't have one, it ain't the end of the world. You're not going to die. We become so privileged, so absolute. It amazes me how when white people experience equality as oppression, that amazes me. And what amazes me also is when privileged people experience real life as something being unreal. So you might not get to walk down the aisle and have your robe on and have somebody shake your hand. But you do get to keep rather your grandparents and your parents and your friends. So remember that. The next time you're lamenting on social media or lamenting about how, the world robbed you of something. No, trust me, this world is so crazy and the vicissitudes are so real that if the world had its real way, it would have taken more than your commencement. Done with that, and I know I'm gonna hear from you, and I'm not gonna respond. Just telling you now. Welcome to the program tonight. Two dear brothers who may or may not agree with me on anything that I just said. All the remarks are on me. It's not on them. Welcome tonight to help me talk about legacy is Laurice Purnell, who is a financial guru and expert, runs his own management company, a former CFO. He's here tonight to help us think through how we might build financial legacies. And of course, he is an author, he's a motivational speaker and a minister, none other than Mr. Brian Bullock. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Sean. Glad to be here today with you from cold Cleveland right now.
Oh, God. Brian, how are you?
I'm in warm North Carolina. The weather here is amazing. I don't know what a winter coat look like or feel like. Matter of fact, I got the door cracked open to let a breeze in. So I'm blessed. I can't complain.
Laurice is totally on his own with this cold weather thing he got on here. He told us before we went on the air tonight that it's actually snowing in Cleveland at the end of April. There's no God in that, man. No. So listen, guys. I gotta ask both of you my most important question of the night. Brian, I'll start with you. How are you, and how are the ones that you love?
Listen, right now I cannot complain. I have a beautiful wife, Karen. We've been married for 12 years, and she's absolutely blessed. She's doing well. I have two kids. I have a 5-year-old girl, and I have a 4-year-old son. And they've been getting on my nerves, but we're blessed. We've been doing our best, man. And I'm praying for everybody who's been impacted by this pandemic. I don't want to see anybody lose their life over this. And I'm grieving with those who have lost loved ones. So I can't complain, man. We're blessed.
Yeah, that's what the scriptures say. We mourn with those who mourn, and we rejoice with those who rejoice. Laurice, how are things going there in cold Cleveland?
Same here, Dr. Sean. Blessed, family's doing well. Family, everybody's safe and at home. Kids home from college, so everybody's in one place. Despite what we're seeing here in our community, we still have people dealing with homelessness, people that are without meals right now. So when I heard you start off today, that really resonated with me, because when you ride past the bus stops and you see people having to sleep there, and you're complaining because you have to stay at home, that's a problem, because you get to be in a home. So I would say overall, we're blessed as a family. We're eating a meal every day. We're in a warm house in a cold city. So we're doing well.
I love that. See, that's exactly what I was trying to say, man. Although I do not associate you with my comments. I take on my own. But that's exactly what I was trying to say. It's like, I get it. You want a commencement, but you got to live. So Brian, here's a strength. I want to get into both of your wheelhouses. But I'm just one more preliminary discussion, question rather. Brian, what do you know now? What do you know now, either about yourself, your family, your life, that you wish you had known before all of this pandemic stuff started?
Wow, what do I know now about myself before this pandemic started? I think I wish I would have known just how blessed I was. Man, I was traveling for a living, and I work at the church. I'm a young adults pastor, but I was on a plane every single week, and I'd be in and out of the house, just running back and forth. And I think I appreciated my family, but not as much as I do now. And I think it's just perspective. Being able to be home with my children, I've been able to teach my kids myself because the teachers can't teach the kids anymore. And so now as a father, I've been teaching my kids things that I've wanted them to know, that I was hoping that the school taught them. But now that I'm home with them, I'm able to talk to them about money and their identity and who they are and about savings. My wife and I, we are having long-term conversations about what is the next 20 years of life? What is the next 40 years of life? When we come out of this, we have our health and we have our strength. What's the long-term plan? And I think for me, man, I'm enjoying home. Some people don't really like being at home. I'm enjoying it. I like my house.
I'm with you.
I love my wife. I love my kids. And so for me, man,
well, I don't have that, but I still like being home.
I like home. Home is good for me. All these people that want to get out of the house so bad, I'm all right. I'm doing good. And so, man, just appreciating the day. I think you can go so fast. Before this, think about it, man. We were running, man. We were just going fast, grind, get it done. And now, man, I'm enjoying the beauty of peace.
Yeah, you know, that again, that's exactly what I was saying in the beginning. People trying to rush back to normal, and be careful what you ask for. Come on, Dr. Sean. Be careful what you ask for, because you're going to mess around and rush back to normal and rush right off the cliff the life was trying to get us to avoid. Lorraine, I'm going to ask you one more preliminary question before I get into the meat of what we're going to talk about tonight. And that is, as you listen to your life in the stillness of your house and in the quarantine, sequestered places where it is you do your thinking in your house, what has your life been saying to you?
That I have to slow down to speed up, and that I need more resources than I had before this, because there's so many people that are in our community that has been exposed of how much that has not been provided to the people in true need. When we talk about, we can get into PPP. You see what's taking place with that. We can talk about communities that aren't being fed. We can talk about people that are homeless right in here in our community. So that's one thing that I've always prayed for. But as I've been able to kind of settle down, I realize that, one thing, it takes money to make change. So that's been my prayer, is that, God will continue to send resources to our community and put it in the right hands that people can be impacted. So that's my heart to give back, so I've been because like I started with Dr. Sean earlier, and I said that my family is blessed. We're warm right now. We're well fed. We have the things we need to survive, but it makes me see, how many people out there are not in the same situation, and to be very thankful for that. And that's what I would say at this time.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that both of you saying, in Brian's case, stillness and being able to be home and to be unmoved, though shaken perhaps sometimes, has been the blessing. And in your case, the very idea of realizing that you have what you need when you need it is what the needed core of life is really all about. So let's get into legacy. Let's get into legacy. And I have this thought, as I am apt to do, and that is this: we spend most of our lives focusing on our resume virtues, which are the things we present before people by which we want them to admit us into their confidence, their circle, or whatever it is. Accept me based upon my resume virtue. But then there are certain things that we might call tonight eulogy virtues. And eulogy virtues are the things that people will say about us after we are no longer here. The hope and the goal is that your eulogy virtues will outlive your resume virtues. Whereas with a lot of people, that's not the case. Here's where I'm going with this. Brian, what are some eulogy virtues that you have come to realize in your work and in your writing and in your ministry are indispensable that every life should aspire towards?
I think first and foremost, man, it's got to be my faith, my trust in life after life. The idea that my life is anchored in something spiritual and not just natural, that I am a spiritual being having an earthly experience, that I'm living for something beyond just cars, houses, and looking good and being famous, that I'm living to live again, that ultimately my faith is the thing that anchors my soul. And I think we're realizing that now, that when the world has stopped, we recognize that the thing we can count on and rely on is our faith in God, our faith in something beyond what we can see, feel, and touch. And so for me, man, I think everyone should be aspiring to say, look, these natural things are cool, but what happens when you take the job away? What happens when you take the house away? Who am I without all these things? And who Brian Bullock is, I'm a child of God. And I think that that is so important. I think that is what gives us hope, because we know that in this life, man, you could be on a high one day and on a low the next day. You could be extremely wealthy one day and then lose it all the next. And so we can't build our life on that. My grandfather used to say, "Oh, him, my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness." And he would always tell me, man, on Christ the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. And I think we're realizing that all other ground is sinking sand. I mean, dude, we don't have the NBA. We don't have the NFL. We don't have sports, the things that were always going.
Brian, the hell with the NBA. We don't have a Cheesecake Factory.
Fried macaroni and cheese, man. The fried macaroni and cheese, come on now. And so we realized that this all sinking sand, man. But dude, I wake up and pray every morning. I woke up this morning, went for a walk, and began to worship. These scriptures that my mother taught me when I was a child are anchoring me. They bring me so much peace. They're bringing my wife and children peace. And I think that's the thing we got to keep in focus.
No, I think that's rich and it's valuable, because again, at the end of the day, I mean, you said it, this moment has reduced us down to what is fundamental. In America, everything is important and none of it is significant. This is the only country in the world that teaches you to love everything and be devoted to absolutely nothing. And this moment has required of us that we develop a new kind of muscle. So I asked Brian about eulogy virtues. Larice, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question and ask you about legacy decisions, because I think Brian tonight is going to be our expert as it relates to principles and philosophy. But Larice, you're going to be our expert as it relates to the practical decisions that you have to make in order to secure your house and your family. Give me some significant legacy decisions.
One, Dr. Sean, we have to stop looking good and we're not good. And that's in our community. We have to not create a top 10 list for Netflix and have no net worth. So when I think about us, we got to spend this time right now. Corona exposed a lot of people, and we're blaming it on Corona, but it just exposed us. It wasn't Corona's fault that we were broke or we had bad credit or we didn't have any money saved. It just exposed us. So I would say, just like you spend, hours Googling and on not your favorite Facebook, IG, and all that stuff all day, how much time are you sitting with your family and having the money date nights, spending 2 hours where you're exposing them to their life insurance policy, where you're exposing them to the accounts, the investments, how to be a home owner, and creating real wealth? How much time are we doing that?
I love him so much.
So what I'm saying to you is we got to create legacies, but you can't create if you don't have a conversation. Like grandma them did, like Brian said, like granddad and grandma, when we would talk about life insurance, they would say, "Baby, what you trying to kill me?" So nobody wanted to talk about that. So when they died, you couldn't even find the policy, or you found keys to a safe deposit box that you didn't know where it existed. So today we have to sit with our families and have conversations. We have to talk about what's in our 401k. How much do we owe on the house? And really make sure that we help line our kids to have future success. So we got to build legacies, but we got to do that through conversations.
No, I love that. I absolutely want to stop and just honor that. The very simple notion that we are probably one conversation away to creating a level of generational wealth that most Black families could not imagine, and we don't do it because we don't have those conversations. I'm as guilty of this as anybody else, because both of my sons have children now, and I still ain't told them nothing. I can't trust. They might come and kill me. Brian,
tell them where the money is. Tell them where the money is, man.
Tell them where it's at.
So, Brian, let me ask you this. I want to stay just a bit more ethereal before I get deliberately practical. Because tonight, what we're talking about, we're bringing together two things that most people don't think go together. We're bringing together wellness and wealth. This conversation is to see how we can make these two things no longer incongruent, but make them mesh, and to make one dependent on the other. Now, to do that, we got to get our terms together. We got to make sure that we understand what the terms are. I'm a philosopher, and I know you cannot have a discussion if you don't agree on the terms. So, Brian, tell us what wellness is.
I think wellness is internal. I don't think it's external. And I think it's you knowing who you are, knowing where you came from, knowing where you're going, and being at peace with that. And I think too often we are, there's something I call, the chapter in my book actually called The Silent Assassin. And I think the silent assassin today is comparison. Because of social media, we compare our lives to everyone else, and it's killing us softly. We're scrolling ourselves into depression. We scroll ourselves into feeling horrible about who we are. There's this funny thing my kids do. One of my kids will wake up in the morning and they'll ask me for my phone. So I'll give them my phone. And then the other kid will wake up and say, well, can I get the iPad? And I'll give them the iPad. Well, the kid who was playing with the phone was happy until they saw the other kid with the big old iPad. Now they're looking at their phone like, get this terrible phone out of here. And I think a lot of people treat their lives that way. We look at our lives and say, I'm good. You saying I'm good. I'm in this place. I'm happy. But then I'm seeing what somebody else has, and it's messing me up. And I think wellness is getting to a place where I'm satisfied with me. I know who I am. I know where I came from. I know where I'm going. I know my purpose, and I'm fine. I'm not trying to be you. I'm not trying to take nobody else's life. I'm not looking at your life with jealousy. I'm celebrating you. I want you to run and get things done and be happy. But I'm at a place where I'm centered, I'm focused, and I'm recognizing, man, that I'm at peace with myself. To me, that's wellness.
No, that's rich. Oh, that's so rich. I mourn for all the people who do not have what you just said, who have never experienced what that means to be able to say to everybody in their lives, I want you to win, because I recognize that your winning does not mean that I have to lose. That to me is absolutely valuable. So we got wellness. Now we need to get the other term down so that we can bring these things together. Tell me, Larice, what is wealth?
Whew, that is a powerful question. Wealth, and it depends on what we're talking about. And I know tonight is a money conversation from my perspective, but I would say wealth is almost like, the question you just asked, Brian, is a holistic approach. So wealth can be in your health. Wealth can be spiritually. It can be in your finances.
Give me financial wealth. Give me financial wealth.
You want financial wealth. So financial wealth is when you're going to leave a legacy. That's wealth. When your kids, when you ask the question, will I leave bills or benefits? And you can answer and say, I'm going to leave both. And the reason.
Hold on. Because I like that. Say that again. Am I going to leave what?
So if you're going to leave bills or benefits, and when you can answer, I'm going to leave both, that means that you've covered your family and you're going to truly leave a legacy for your family. So it's when you have those documents in place, when you've had those conversations, when you don't just leave your kid $1 million and you haven't explained to them what to do with it. Because it's like an NFL player who come from being poor and living in the projects of their cities to waking up an instant millionaire, and you haven't had conversations. So they lose it all within months. It slips through their hand. So wealth is a mental state and a mental conversation and a status, but it's something that has to be conversated, and that's truly what wealth is to me.
Yeah, no, I that's rich. I think that yeah, because I'm playing it through my mind of if I dropped dead 5 minutes ago, what would I be leaving to my crumb snatchers? Would I be leaving bills or benefits? And I think everybody watching needs to ask themselves that question. If you died a week ago, we won't put it into the future, but if you died a week ago, would you be leaving your family with bills or benefits? I absolutely love that. So Brian, I'm going to change gears a little bit, and I'm going to ask you what I'm going to call an inductive question. And my inductive question is this: as it relates to wellness and to legacy and to how we live, what are some of the things? Now, listen carefully. What are some of the things we need to unlearn?
I think that we need to unlearn, and this is subjective, because I grew up with a grandfather who taught me faith and taught me about heaven, but never taught me about earth. And they almost made it seem like, God bless their soul, they almost made it seem like anyone thinking about their own legacy was almost kind of negative. The idea that you should be concerned about legacy was almost a bit of pride, almost arrogant. Don't worry about your legacy. Or
jinxing yourself.
Yeah. And I think that you need to unlearn that. No, you need to think about your legacy. There are some people here who this is the most time they've spent talking about legacy, or even hearing a conversation about it, because people don't necessarily talk about it. And you got to unlearn that. You got to get to a place where you recognize, if I don't start building my own legacy, I will spend the rest of my life only building someone else's. And I don't want you living a life where you're building everyone else's legacy and ignoring your own. And we've gotten to a place, man, where we're helping everybody make their name great, and we're making our name mean absolutely nothing and taking pride in it. And
Brian,
I think
you're gonna get hit. I'm gonna slap you with a shoe. Keep going.
We've got to recognize that my name matters. My last name matters. My who I am matters. And I may not have the money you have. I may not have the status you have. I may not have grown up in the neighborhood you grew up in, but it doesn't matter. The fact that I'm on the earth, it means that my life matters, and I'm going to make a difference. And we have to unlearn. God bless all of those who told us just to be humble, be quiet, and live quietly, die and go to heaven, and then you'll get your reward. I'm saying, no, while I'm on the earth, I'm going to make a little bit of noise, and people will know that Brian Bullock was here.
I know that's right. Hold on, let me clap for that. I'm gonna clap for you, my damn self. You know, Brian is saved, and I think Larissa is going to heaven. I will, yeah. So I'm just saying. So you know what's amazing about that, Brian, is at the studio one day, someone asked me, because people know I'm a philosopher, so they asked me, Dr. Sean, who's your favorite philosopher? And I was like, me. Like, what? You know, they thought it was, it's arrogant and but no, I didn't read all this book and work this hard to be an expert in Kant or Socrates or Aristotle. I worked hard to be an expert in me. Anyway, Larissa, let me get to you before I go down that rabbit hole and be an hour later. I'm gonna ask you the same question though. As it relates to money and wealth, what are some of the things we need to unlearn?
Kind of to piggyback on what Brian had to say with that, I think that's a great question, and people need to hear that. And the answer to it is, I truly feel that, in our community, the saying goes, and Dr. Vernon would say it as well, is ain't nobody got no money. And that's what you hear your family is. It's been resignated. It's almost like telling people, you know, when you grow up, you heard, you know, family say you're not smart, you're not going to be anything. And that's been embedded in our families' heads that nobody will have no money. So like Brian said, you know, people, you know, when you get something, it's automatic without you saying it is, oh, he's arrogant, or she thinks she's better than us.
Right,
So we have
right.
we have to change that mindset and say, no, you ain't got no money, because I'm building something, and then be proud of that, and then want to pull people up with you as you're building. The other thing I say,
no, wait. We can't rush past that part. He said, the brother said, no, you ain't got no money. I felt that down in my shondo.
You felt it down in your shondo.
Hashtag, you ain't got no money. Keep going, Maurice.
Look, and the other thing is, you know, I did a video, Dr. Sean, on Instagram about a week ago, and I stood in front of Saks, and I called it Saks versus Stocks. We have to become owners in our community and not consumers. $1.2 trillion that we consume and spend, you know, in this world, which makes us the 16th largest GDP in the world. So with that being said, is I showed an example, you know, instead of buying a Louis Vuitton for $1,600, you can buy 17 shares and be an owner in Louis Vuitton. Instead of pulling up in a Range Rover and renting, or a Land Rover and get a landlord, why is your house more expensive than where you live? So really in this community, you know, pushing people to be owners and not be consumers and renters. So I think we have to change that.
Laurice, you cut me with the Range Rover, though. You cut me, because that's my favorite car, and I believe in God for a big black one. So I bind everything. I receive everything, but I bind that Range Rover. That's the devil. Because
wow,
it's coming to me. Yeah. Anyway. So listen, guys. So Brian, let me totally change gears and get serious, because this is supposed to be a serious show. And let me ask you about your book, Living for Legacy, because you began to talk about it just a few moments ago. And both of you have now, I think, set the conditions to begin to merge together wealth and wellness, to see them as two halves of the same whole, right? That to be able to say to the world, first of all, my last name matters. I wasn't sent here to build your legacy. I was sent here to build mine. And the way that I do that is by having critical conversations with the ones that I love about the information they need to know, and to track my humanity enough to ask, am I leaving you bills or benefits? So, having recapped that, Brian, your book becomes essential now, because we need to understand how it is that we live for a legacy. Now, before you answer that general question, tell me, and it may be the same answer, why did you write this book? Because I love the title, and I love what it's about.
I wrote this book really because of an outcry that was from my own heart, and an outcry that I feel like I was hearing from people. About a year ago, I had a video that went viral. And when I say viral, man, I mean 1 million people watched this video. It's been shared by athletes,
Really?
artists, celebrities, pastors. And it was me doing a sermon at my church here in North Carolina. And I did a Google search on all of the companies that were last names. And I realized that there were a lot of companies that are last names. McDonald's is a last name. Welch's grape juice is a last name. Gucci's a last name. Hennessy, Harley Davidson, Wells Fargo, Rolls Royce. All of these are last names. And so here I was thinking that I was investing in a product. I wasn't investing in a product. I was investing in a name. And while I was making every other name rich, I was making my own name broke. And I realized that how is it that I'm giving to the McDonald's family and not giving anything to the Bullock family? And so it made me stop, man. I got a daughter, I have a son. And I realized that it's my responsibility to create a legacy and to define what my name means in the earth. Jesus says it this way. He says, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father who's in heaven. I got a light and I got to let that thing shine, man. There's something that God has given me. There's something that I'm here for. And so living for legacy is my way of helping millennials who have only made legacy a conversation about what will people say when I die. And I need them to move that conversation to what will people say when I leave the room? Because I think that we all think legacy is what happens when I die. But the truth is there are things that you're doing when you're 21 that the 31-year-old you is going to have to pay for. See, it's fun when you're 24 and doing your thing, not realizing the 34-year-old you is going to want to choke you. And so if I can get millennials to recognize that you're creating a legacy right now, and you got to be intentional about the legacy you leave and what you want people to remember about you on this last job, or what you want people to remember about you in the last room you were in. If we can get our lives there, then I think that we're going to maximize our today because we're looking forward to our tomorrow.
Show's over. All right. I got nothing else to add to that. That was good. No, that was that. I look, that was amazing. And what's amazing about it is I've never heard anybody articulate with such clarity and such poignancy the idea that the question should, and not just for millennials, by the way, though I think that audience needs to hear what you said in almost every way, that the question should not be what will they say when I die, but what will they say when I leave the room, man. I know a lot of people that got tattoos on their face. I'm just gonna let that linger. Because when you get to be 60, you're gonna look like a damn fool walking around. But anyway, Larice, let me go to you before I get in trouble, because I think Brian has laid it out in just quick terms. What's at stake in this conversation? That's why I love what you said so much, is that you've raised the stakes and you deepened the matter to make us consider what's really at stake here. Here's how you put it. The 34-year-old is going to have to pay for what the 21-year-old did. And we got to remember that. Which makes me want to ask you, Larice, this question. Because I think people associate wealth and money with access, with excess, with things. But what is the connection between having money, and this question almost seems counterintuitive, I'm asking anyway, between having money and being happy?
That's deep. So I would say, one, it really, because everything is relative to the level you're at. And, I always tell people, they're like, Larice, I don't make enough money. And, I don't make enough to put away or get ready for my legacy or to invest. And I always say, I don't meet a lot of poor people. I meet a lot of broke people with broke mindsets. And
what's the difference for you?
For me is that they can't pay their bills. They have no margins. They have nothing to put away. So they put themselves in a position where they cannot save for tomorrow. They cannot create that legacy that's important because they drive too much car or live in too big of a house, that's not fully furnished because—
Leave my Range Rover alone, man.
Look, so I would say with that, I give examples of, I had a client that made $39,000 a year that had over $1 million saved. So it was discipline and habits. So it really doesn't matter, the amount of money you make. It's the discipline and the stewardship that you put in place that will allow you to put away for tomorrow. So
okay, stop, because you just said something that really that got me. That got me. Because here's what I hear you saying. You tell me if I got it wrong or if I got it right. We have made saving money and what we do with money about the money and about what we can do with the money that we save. But there may be, on some level, a deeper benefit. And the deeper benefit is not just that we save money and can do things with the money that we've saved, but we have developed certain habits of the mind, habits of desire, habits of discipline. And I'm a firm believer that the pain of discipline is 100 times better than the pain and consequence.
That's right. So no, you're absolutely right. So what I've been teaching here in the community is the COVID budget. I've been providing that to people as I've been teaching these particular workshops. And the reason why that is again, Corona exposed a lot of people on what the needs versus wants are. And I think we've realized, again, when you look at that budget and you go down that line item of expenses and you see that you have cable and you have no savings account, it's simple. All you got to do is do quick math. $100 a month times 12 is $1,200. And when you look at more than 54% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in their savings account. That's an issue.
Yeah.
So again, it's challenging yourself to be disciplined and to know where are you putting your money at. That doesn't allow you, again, to leave that legacy that for you and your family. So again, I start with the expenses. At the end, when you do the end cap of that, you're looking at 401k. You're looking at Roth IRAs. You're looking at stocks and bonds, things that appreciate. And when you get to that area and it's empty, then there's an issue, because you got to ask yourself, when you look at socialsecurity.gov and you look up your Social Security and see right now you only have $400 in that fund, but you have no savings account or no investment accounts. What are you going to do when it's time to retire? So that's, again, it's something about having wealth that gives you a different swag. I tell people, you go to work different. You act different at work. When a pink slip comes around, you're not as worried. You got a different pep in your step when you know you have some wealth. It gives you a level of confidence. So that's where that happipiness and wealth kind of comes together.
You know what's interesting, Brian, is whenever I talk to authors, and Larissa has also written a book, which we'll get to in a second. But with respect to your book, Brian, whenever I talk to authors, one of the things I love to ask them is, what did the writing of this book teach you about yourself?
I think for me, man, it taught me that my upbringing, I needed to forgive. I needed to forgive. I was raised by a single mom, and she raised me and my brothers on her own. My dad was addicted to drugs. He was in and out of the house. I did not learn legacy from my dad. To be honest, my dad taught me what not to do. And so I believe that I'm a great father today because of the type of father that he was. And I think as I was writing this book, I realized, man, I was holding a little bit of anger towards my dad and how I was raised. But I learned legacy from my grandfather. And my mother, she would take me to church, and my grandfather was the one who would say, this is who a Bullock is. This is what a Bullock does. And the Lord convicted me, man, because I got to a place where it was like, what if your dad wasn't around, not because he was rejecting you, but because I was protecting you. And so rather than spending your time being upset, maybe I was actually putting you in a position to break some generational curses. And I recognized that my father did his best. He did everything that he could do. But now it's my time to break that cycle. Maybe he attempted to break the cycle of addiction in our family, and he couldn't. But now I'm here. I'm the first fruit. And so I'm determined, man, during this book writing process, I'm going to be a first fruit. I'm going to break some generational curses. And I think I'm going to do something. Can we go back to that commencement thing? I think that for some of those people, they're the first in their family who are ever going to graduate. They're the first in their family who are going to get a diploma or a degree. And I think for some people, it's exactly what you said. We're just not being grateful. But I think there's a few that for them, it's like, my mother didn't graduate. My grandmother didn't graduate. And I'm going to be the first in my family to do so. And I think writing this book taught me, you know what, my dad, it doesn't matter how you start, it matters how you finish. And I'm planning on finishing strong.
And Brian, I received it. I think 100% that everything that you've articulated. First of all, you learned a lot from writing that damn book. Let me say. So let me just say that. Everybody ought to write a book, and you get to learn that. Hell, I'm gonna go write me one when this interview is over. But Larissa, let me ask you about your book, because you have a book called Financial Foundations.
Yes.
In addition to the financial classes that you offer, online. Talk to me about the book first, because again, why did you write it, and who were you writing to?
So when I wrote it, definitely, want to thank, Pastor Vernon, Dr. Vernon at the Word Church for pushing me to write it as his CFO.
Shout out to R.A. Vernon.
Yeah, at that time when I was on staff, he had written a book, and, at that time we saw there was a need in the community. A lot of people were struggling, financially. And he said, you know what? You don't want to hoard, what God has put inside of you. And you need to share that with the community, because so many people really attach themselves to you and really confide in you and trust, the wisdom that you share with them. So that really pushed me. And kind of to what Brian talked about as well, the way I grew up, living in homeless shelters, with a single mother, father. If he walked in the room right now, I wouldn't even know who he was, and going through all the financial difficulties that we went through growing up. I wanted to make sure that people that were going through the same things or experience the same things would be able to utilize this tool, not to live their past, but live, what I felt like God's financial future for them would be. So with thousands of members coming through those doors, I felt there was a great opportunity for me to provide something through research. When I started to look at statistics and the struggles in our community, the lack thereof, and asking people like, where have you learned about finance? And again, and just kind of going back to my history, where nobody wanted to talk about money because everybody was living check to check. So they didn't know how to. And the thing wasn't that they didn't talk about it; they didn't know how to talk about it because they had never been taught. So for me, I felt like it was a tool that would be able to be a blessing, and not only a blessing to them, but be a blessing to the ministry. So it would allow, if you make the saints and you put them in position financially, then it allows the ministry to have a bigger and a wider net to cast from an impact perspective. So I felt that was important as well as I let this book out, to the masses.
No, you see, you two are going to heaven. I'm going to end up in purgatory, because my logic is, if you teach the saints how to conduct their money better, they can get them a Range Rover. Tonight, this so I'm telling you, this show.
Sure, look, I'm praying that for you.
So listen, I'm running out of time. I got about maybe 7 minutes left. So here's the thing. So I got to set this up the right way. I'm gonna start with you, Brian. So when Noah was going into the ark, right? The scriptures say that he was told to take 2 of every kind of animal, right? And so people were laughing at him because, what are you doing, Noah? But what they didn't realize was that the animals were for life after the storm was over. The boat was for the storm. But
Preach, sir. Preach.
But the animals were for, you're gonna need to eat after this is over. So here's my thing about COVID-19 and the coronavirus. A lot of people are focusing on the boat. They're focusing on the moment. And I want you in our final moments to give us some thinking, some words that would help us focus on what is life going to be after the storm is over. Because I watch all the shows, I watch everybody talking. I don't think enough people are thinking a year from now, 6 months from now. Give me something, give my audience something that will take our mind off the boat and put our minds on 2 of every kind.
Well, for me, man, I fly a lot. And whenever I fly in the midst of turbulence, the first thing I do is I look at the flight attendants. And if the flight attendants are calm, then I know everything's going to be okay. And if the flight attendants are going crazy, then I get worried. And part of the reason why the flight attendants are calm is because they know the pilot. They know that the pilot has got that plane and the plane's going to be okay. And I think that there are people right now in the midst of this storm, in the midst of this turbulence. I think that we have to recognize that when this is over, you're going to have to leave from being a passenger to being a flight attendant. You're going to have to be the one that's going to bring the calm to the storm. We need people who are doing business. We need people who are raising their families. We need people who are building wealth. We need
people who care about their last name.
We need people who care about their last name. Life has to go on. And I think it's important that it starts now. Don't wait until you think things have gotten better. Don't wait until toilet paper and sanitizer comes back into the stores. Don't wait. Now is the time to say, you know what? I'm going to be a person. Now's the time to write the book. Now's the time to start the business. Now's the time. If you have your health, as long as you're breathing, then now is the time for you to decide, I'm going to build legacy no matter what. And that's going to carry you through the rest of this storm, even afterwards.
No, Brian, that's amazing advice. It makes me want to ask you, what's the best advice you've ever been received?
Oh, the best advice that I've ever received. I don't know about the best advice I've ever received. I know about the best advice that I've been living on for a while now. And I think it's in two realms. Number one, it is you will be exactly who you are today in 5 years, except for the people that you meet and the books that you read. And I realized that growth comes from who I meet and what I'm reading. And this is the time to find out, what are you digesting? This is the time to ask yourself, who am I meeting? Listen, I'm here on Fox Soul right now talking to the Dr. Sean. This is a life-shifting moment for me, and it's happening in the middle of a pandemic. And I think the same thing can happen for others if you decide, you know what? I'm not going to wait. I'm going to start reading something to fuel my mind, and I'm going to start meeting the people that can fuel my soul. And I think that will put us on the path to destiny.
No, I think you're absolutely correct about that, because there's something called a theophany, and a theophany are those moments when something transcendent or divine manifests itself in ways that we can touch and reach. So, Larice, first of all, Larice, stop touching buttons. How about
Man, look, I said, what? I said, that's the enemy. He know I have something to say about that. So
that's because you came against my Range Rover.
So you shut me off. I paid for it too. So
I'm gonna give you the last word, man. I'm gonna give you the last word. Tell me, who is a legacy that you aspire to reach, not as Brian has taught us tonight, not to compare, but a legacy that you aspire to emulate and to reach. Who is that person in your life?
In my life right now,
don't say Jesus or God.
No, of course, first and foremost, God, but I would say for me, as a proud man of Alpha Phi Alpha, I have to make sure I say that, Dr. Martin Luther King and just all that he did, within our community, not locally, but globally, the impact that he's made. I would say that's who when you think about, we're talking, 50 years ago, and we're still talking about the impact, and we're seeing the impact and changes that he's made within our communities. I would say that, Brian said some good things. He talked about living conversations that people have with you or about you, but then also when you're gone, what are people saying about you? So when I think about even the book I wrote, that's something that's going to transcend. When I'm gone, it'll still be on library shelves. When Dr. King, the work he has done, will make impact for years ago. So I want, when people in this community, they look and to say something that you said, Dr. Sean, earlier, the legacy that I'm going to leave as well. So God bless, what Dr. King has been able to do. My last name, Brian, what you said as well, my last name will mean something. It'll be on a street corner where my kids will see that my grandfather, their kids will see their grandfather lay the ground to create something, in our family that had never been done before. So as I do the work that I do.
Larice, I'm going to cut you off because I'm running out of time, but I want you to tell everybody how they can access your classes online.
So what they can do to just go to Instagram.
You got 20 seconds.
Instagram, Larice Purnell, Facebook. Come check us out. Look at my story. I'll be posting them.
You're part of our family.
Hey, this was a good conversation. It was a great conversation. And part of the reason why was because when Larice came against my Range Rover, conspired to fight for my cause. And I just, so listen, everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate all of you watching. Seriously speaking, we have heard from two absolutely brilliant people who have done the hard work of marrying a wellness and wealth and explaining it in a way that we could touch it, reach it, and appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in tonight. I promise I'll be back tomorrow. Don't go anywhere. Ricky Smiley's coming on with the quarantine cook-off. It'll be quite a moment. You know how Ricky Smiley is. I see you tomorrow. Be good to each other. I love you.